world at a recent International Network of Civil Liberties Organizations conference convening on trans rights. This kind of leadership in Canada trickles, well, it's tremendously important for the citizens of Hamilton, tremendously important leadership for the province of Ontario and for the country, but the import and the impact of these protocols and this clear direction with respect to inclusion of trans and gender, non-binary and gender non-conforming people in our society really can echo in terms of leadership around the world. So I want to say that. I did not have the opportunity to review the ARPA brief. I know that one issue was raised in terms of freedom of speech issues. I don't believe that those are of concern with respect to this protocol, given that it reflects customer service standards and standards with respect to employees. So this is not direction that people are being given in terms of what they can say or think in their personal time and their personal lives, and the people have the freedom to follow their conscience. With respect to how people interact with customers, how people interact with other employees, these are environments where the city has an interest, I know, in terms of making sure that the environment is inclusive and that all people can access services and employees can feel safe and comfortable in their jobs for the city.
Thank you. That's it, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity.
One further question. Sorry, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor. Oh, sorry, Councillor Aidan Johnson.
I'd like to request a standing recorded vote at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Brenda Johnson?
Yep, thank you. And you heard, and I'm going to revert my questions to Ms. Nissbaum. Thank you very much for coming. You heard the gentleman from Ottawa. He went through it line by line. I was trying to keep up with him with some of his suggestions. My understanding was that we did receive an appendix before this meeting, and it had certain wording in it. And when we sat here this morning, the blotter changed some of that wording. And some of the wording was to remove "and lived," like it should stay, and the gentleman from Ottawa said, no, that part should stay. So he was putting some of the changes back in, or suggesting some of the changes putting back in. And not to put you on the spot or anything, but when I was listening to this gentleman, and I'm thinking, okay, there's free legal advice. Do you have any comment as to some of the tweaking he was suggesting to strengthen some of the wording in this?
Madam Chair, so in answer to that question, number one, I want to make it clear that I'm not providing legal advice to the city.
No, he was.
Right.
That's how I looked at it.
But I am not.
No, I agree.
In terms of, from a policy perspective though,
right.
The use of lived gender identity creates actually quite a bit more confusion, because who is to determine that question at what point in time?
Okay.
When you put that question to somebody, say at a bus shelter, at a bus terminal rather, and you ask them to be on the spot, make a determination of what somebody's lived gender is, that creates a lot of confusion, that creates a lot of opportunity for a well-intentioned person to make a big mistake and to create a lot of and to create a lot of confusion, and then sometimes human rights complaints and that sort of thing. Self-identification is you heard a lot of evidence, testimony from the delegations today about the balance in terms of where issues of violence and harassment exist. With that balance, it's my policy perspective that safety does not come from excluding groups of people. It comes from creating safer environments. There are inclusive design principles that can be incorporated. I think there's some best practices around that. And I think that this protocol really is a starting point in terms of developing, there are a range of other policies that are impacted by this, and I think in the coming days and months and years, as this policy protocol gains its own life and is integrated across existing policies, you'll see greater development of the specifics.
Okay, so thank you. So in your opinion, some of the suggestions to put some of the wording back in and to take some of that wording back out, it counteracts exactly what your intent is for making this policy in the first place?
With respect to that specific example, yes, because I'm not aware of every suggestion. I don't want to speak in a blanket with a blanket statement, but I'm happy to review some of those suggestions and provide comments.
That would be awesome. Seriously, it would be awesome. Speaking personally, I think that would be great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm finished.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, regarding 9.1, the motion as amended, moved by Councillor Aidan Johnson, seconded by Mayor Fred Eisenberger. All those in favor, please a standing and recorded vote. All those in favor? 9.1, isn't it? 8.1.
Madam Chair, I don't sit on the committee, but I'm going to stand anyway.
Madam Clerk, sorry, Madam Clerk, may I have clarification?
I did ask for clarification from the councillor, and we will be having a standing recorded vote on item 8.1 and on item 9.1.
Okay, for item 8.1, as amended. Thank you. Councillor Aidan Johnson, Mayor Fred Eisenberger, sorry, Councillor Whitehead, Councillor Collins, Councillor Vanderbeek, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Brenda Johnson, Councillor Donna Skelly. Carried. On item 9.1, please a standing and recorded vote. As amended, Madam Clerk? No? Yes? As amended? No? Yes? As amended. Councillor Aidan Johnson, Councillor Mayor Fred Eisenberger, Councillor Donna Skelly, Councillor Brenda Johnson, Councillor Ferguson, and Councillor Collins. Carried. Congratulations, Councillor Johnson. We're moving on to consent items. 5.1. This gets really boring at this point in, folks. Just